It did not knock. It did not announce itself with ceremony. It simply came, slipping quietly through cracks in the old house, settling into walls, bones, and memories. The cold pierced more than skin, it reached into the heart, where years of pride and regret had long been left untouched. Father James's house, once alive with commands, heavy footsteps, and the unquestioned authority of its owner, had fallen into an uneasy silence. The silence was not peaceful. It was vast, hollow, and unsettling, like a cathedral abandoned by its congregation. The man who had once controlled the destinies of others now lay alone in his room, weakened by illness and defeated by time. Fever blurred his thoughts. Sometimes he opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling, as if answers might be hidden in invisible cracks shaped by the past. At other moments, he shut his eyes tightly, trying to escape memories he had spent a lifetime avoiding, harsh decisions made without hesitation, words spoken without mercy, and above all, the calm yet wounded face of Diep. For years, Father James had believed that power and money were enough to protect his family. He convinced himself that choosing his son's future was an act of love. He never questioned his authority. Never listened, never looked beyond appearances, and now, as his body weakened, those certainties began to fracture. The wind tapped gently against the window, a quiet reminder of how fragile a human being becomes when there is no one left to command, no one left to obey. The house felt too large for one sick man. For the first time in his life, Father James felt fear. Not the fear of losing power, but the fear of being left alone. He tried to sit up. Pain forced him back down. His breathing grew heavy, uneven. In that moment, the irony of his life became painfully clear. He had rejected a humble young woman for being unworthy, and now not even all his wealth could buy him the simplest form of human warmth. Soft footsteps echoed from the hallway. They were not hurried, not loud. They moved carefully, respectfully, as if whoever approached did not want to disturb the fragile balance of silence holding the house together. Father James frowned, straining to listen. That sound, so small, so ordinary, would mark the beginning of a change he had never imagined. Because sometimes, the greatest apologies do not arrive wrapped in words. Sometimes, they arrive as quietly as warmth reaching a pair of trembling hands. The door opened with a faint creak. Father James turned his head slowly, expecting a servant, perhaps a nurse. What he saw instead made his breath falter. It was Diep. She entered softly, holding a white porcelain bowl. Steam rose gently from it, filling the room with the simple, unmistakable scent of warm porridge. There was no reproach on her face. No pride, no fear, only a deep, steady calm, the kind that comes from learning how to endure pain without allowing it to turn bitter. Father James tried to speak, but his throat was too dry to form words. He had never imagined she would be the one standing there. The same woman he had dismissed because of her origins. The same woman he had seen as a threat to his son's future. And yet, there she was, tending to him as if the past had never existed. He needs something warm, Diep said softly, almost in a whisper. She placed the bowl on the small table beside the bed and sat down. With a small spoon, she stirred the porridge, letting the steam fade slightly. Every movement was careful, deliberate, filled with quiet sincerity. She sought no recognition. No forgiveness. Father James watched her in silence. Each gesture reminded him of something he had long forgotten. Kindness that makes no noise. Kindness that demands nothing in return. When Diep brought the spoon to his lips, Father James hesitated. Not out of pride, but out of shame. Shame for every time he had judged her without knowing her. Shame for believing love could be measured by status and surname. Shame for thinking authority was stronger than compassion. The taste was simple. There was no luxury in the bowl, no extravagance, yet warmth spread slowly through his body, awakening something deeper than hunger. It stirred memories of a distant childhood, of another hand, long forgotten, offering comfort without questions. Too Diep said nothing. She did not need to. In that shared silence, Father James understood something profound. Some apologies are not spoken. They are served hot, in moments when the heart is weakest. Night fell gradually, as if time itself had chosen to slow down. Outside, the wind brushed against the old tree in the garden, producing a soft, melancholic sound. Inside, the bowl lay empty, yet its warmth lingered stubbornly in the air. Father James closed his eyes. He was not sleeping, he was thinking. For decades, he had believed control was the safest way to protect his son, control over choices, paths, even emotions. He believed love could be molded, corrected, or erased if necessary. Now, lying there, weak, dependent, he finally understood how fragile that belief had been. He opened his eyes and looked toward the window. Too Diep sat there quietly. Her hands rested in her lap, tired, yet steady. She did not look like someone waiting for an apology. She looked like someone who simply cared. "Why are you still here?" Father James asked at last, his voice hoarse. Too Diep lifted her gaze. Her eyes reflected weariness, but also serenity. "Because James isn't here," she replied gently. "And because you're sick." Nothing more. The words struck him harder than any accusation. She did not mention the past. She did not speak of humiliation or pain. She did not justify herself. She was simply there. Something tightened in Father James's chest, not the illness, but the weight of everything unsaid. Every moment he could have been fair and chose to be cruel. Every apology he postponed until silence replaced opportunity. He wanted to apologize. The words were clear in his mind, but they caught in his throat. Perhaps some apologies come too late to sound complete. Too Diep adjusted the blanket around his shoulders. "Rest," she said softly. "Tomorrow will be a better day." She turned off the light and left the room. Father James lay awake, staring into the darkness. For the first time, he understood that forgiveness does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes quietly, and hurts precisely because it is true. Morning crept in softly. Sunlight slipped through the crack in the door, touching Father James's aged face. He opened his eyes and realized he had slept more peacefully than he had in years. From the kitchen came familiar sounds. Without looking, he knew it was Too Diep. She was lighting the fire. Preparing breakfast, the same way she always did, silently, patiently, expecting nothing in return. Father James tried to sit up. His body was still weak, but something inside him had shifted. He was no longer the rigid man accustomed to command, but someone learning, slowly, to acknowledge his own mistakes. When Too Diep returned with another bowl of porridge, he stared at it for a long moment. "It's the same as yesterday," he said quietly, "but it isn't. You didn't have to do this," he added. "I don't deserve it." Too Diep paused, then placed the bowl on the table. "We all have moments of weakness," she replied. "When someone is weak, they need care, not because they deserve it, but because they need it." Father James closed his eyes. This time, a tear escaped, slow, burning, sincere. He did not apologize. Instead, he extended his hand. It trembled as it reached for hers. That simple touch carried more than 1,000 words. Acknowledgement, remorse, and a belated sincerity that no speech could match. Too Diep did not pull away. Outside, life continued as usual. People hurried through their routines, carrying worries of their own. Inside that small room, something invisible collapsed, not through argument, not through conditions, but through warmth. A bowl of porridge, a bowed head, a heart finally learning humility.